Thank you, sir, and ma'am. For the first question, I call Isa Bendano from GMA DCWP.
Magandang umaga po. Meron pong survey yung Okta Research and dito po sa survey na to na conducted last December lang pero recent lang po nilabas. 59% ng Filipinos po ay in favor na mag-rejoin yung Philippines sa International Criminal Court, while 55% po ay in favor naman na mag-cooperate yung government natin sa probe ng ICC sa war on drugs. Your thoughts po bilang dalawa rin po kayong abogado. Then si Congressman Adyong po. Thank you.
Thank you. For that, of course, we respect what the people would be in favor for. But it doesn't necessarily mean naman po na is 59% wish to do this or 55% wish to cooperate, ay automatically papasok na po at babalik po tayo sa ICC. We would respect that and it will really be up to the executive. Executive naman po mag-decide kung yan po ang gusto po. But I think the President has already stated that as far as the date, we are not going to go back to the ICC. So, tingnan po natin, executive powers on the board.
On my part po, no, just for background to refresh everyone, this representation together with Congressman Benny Abante filed a resolution urging the executive branch to cooperate with the ICC. So on my part po, I'm not saying this is on behalf of the House, pero we welcome that development. It just vindicates po yung ating resolution. Ibig sabihin po, mukhang majority po ng taong bayan is with us on this effort. And just to repeat po, no, why we filed that resolution, we really want to, like with economic chacha, it's all about sending the correct signals sa ating mga foreign friends and investors. Kasi as we mentioned, we're part of the community of nations. Hindi po tayo nag-iisa dito sa Pilipinas. We want to show them na we respect and uphold the rule of law, human rights. And seeing now, yung sa Okta Research, mukhang sang-ayon po sa atin yung taong bayan. So I do hope, and although tama yung sinabi ni Attorney ni Comings, na it is up to the executive, we do hope that they would reconsider their position, given light no of this new survey. Level.
Well, it's an executive decision. Should this administration join the ICC? In fact, the same can be applied in this current administration. During the previous administration's unilateral revocation, the withdrawal of our membership from the ICC. I think this current administration is conscious on data-driven studies, yung mga surveys, yung mga research. Sabi nga ng mga kasamahan ko dito, ang gobyerno at ang administration, sino man ang nakaupo, ay responsive dapat sa mga pulso ng bayan. And that's why we're here, that's why we elected in the first place. So I guess it's part of the executive to appreciate and to probably decide on whether or not we should rejoin the ICC. But if it's based on a study, which according to you, it came out from recently, 6% of Filipinos out of 10 or 5.9 out of 6, yes, it's in the middle. So I think it should be the executive branch that would put a stop to the issue whether or not we will join or we will maintain our withdrawal from the ICC. So, yun ang position namin dito sa House of Representatives. We respect whatever is the decision of the executive. Should they finally decide to rejoin the ICC, that's based on what the people's, polls today, then we will welcome that in the House of Representatives, I guess. And just to be clear about that, that is my personal opinion on the matter. We have yet to decide, the leadership have yet to decide, but basically this is ultimately an executive decision for Malacanang to finally decide on.
Thank you. We would like to acknowledge Billy Vegas from Abante Politico for his question.
Kahapon po, lumabas na sa public yung subpoena para kay Pastor Nibuloy. So, pag hindi siya dumating sa susunod na hearing, most likely ma-cite in contempt siya. So is the House ready na ipa-arresto po si Pastor Kibuloy?
Well, to answer that question po, no? Matagal na po yung nagkaroon tayo ng hearing dito tungkol sa SMNI franchise, and I suppose baka ready na po yung House. I believe it was a motion by Kong Pimentel, and wala pong nag-object. So this would give you the sentiment po siguro ng committee. Just to reiterate, napaka-importante po sana yung presence ni Pastor Kibuloy kasi as we mentioned, sections 4, 6, 7, 10, 11, 12, ang daming violations na nakikita namin sa committee, ngunit parang hindi po sapat yung mga sagot ng kanilang representatives. And we respect po, no, of course, yung representatives as they appear. Naintindihan po na as a lawyer, naintindihan rin namin yung mga abogado ng SMNI. Siyempre, kahit through hook or by crook, talagang paninindigan nila yung stand nila kahit na mukhang palusot minsan. But as mambabatas po, as a lawmaker, nakikita po namin na we demand answers po. So sa tingin po namin, importante po talaga na nandun po si Pastor Kibuloy. And that's why siguro po yun yung sentimento ni Congressman Pimentel by making that motion po na for the subpoena. And we are happy, at least ako personally, this representation na yung leadership has backed it up, no? Nagkaroon na ngayon ng subpoena. So upon if next hearing, absent po ulit siya, I would say I think ready po yung committee to seek po, no, for to cite in contempt and seek the subsequent arrest po, no.
Yeah, you go first.
Well, with that, the committee will not be able to issue any subpoena if the committee in the House is not ready. And alam po natin, hindi lang naman po yung House ang nag-issue po kahapon, but also the Senate has issued this. And this is a matter of due process. And it's only right also na dumating po sana si Pastor para masagot po niya yung mga katanungan. That is in relation to him and his own personal knowledge. So sana po dumating siya para itong mga tinitingnan natin sa pagtitingnan sa mga pangkisa ay makapagsalita po siya. And that's only a matter of due process, and it's his right na sana dumating siya para masagot niya ang mga katanungan at hindi lang mga tao na dumadating at para andyan na lang po, masagot niya lang talaga lahat ng mga katanungan instead of insinuating a lot of things.
Well, I'm not a lawyer, but you know, may kasabihan kasi ang mga abogado eh. Flight is an admission of guilt, di ba? So we only issue subpoenas if the respondent is uncooperative, continuously dismissing the power of the House of Representatives as granted by the Constitution. It's a perfect avenue for anybody to defend himself if there are allegations that such violations are committed by his person or by his organization. This is a perfect way for the pastor to really share his piece, no, to the public. Kasi ang itidepensa po dito yung, I think, yung franchise ng SMNI. So, sabi ko nga, I would like to reiterate, we don't take issuance of subpoena lightly. We only issue subpoenas if there is a deliberate dismissal or rejection or ignoring the invitation of the House of Representatives. That's the last recourse. And his presence is very, very vital in the ongoing committee hearings para mas makita yung buong picture po ng pagdating po doon sa usapin ng violations ng SMNI.
Thank you. RD Cruz, ABS-CBN.
Good morning po. I have two questions. Sa camera na lang po kayo sumagot. First question, may statement si Senator Amy Marcos claiming that yung AKAP funds baka na-divert doon yung ilang pondo from na dapat nakalaan sa mga pensyonado. What is your response to that?
Well, taking from what you said, no, baka, no, tingnan po muna natin ano po ba ang proseso nitong sa budgetary process. Sinasabi po, di ba, na may mga insertions at mga bagay-bagay na baka naman nandyan. So, we have yet to see what the good senator will be given to us. Pero pag tinignan natin yung budgetary process, ang manggagaling po ang unang stage po dito ay galing po kung ano yung meron tayong pera na pwede nating tingnan for the budget, for the General Appropriations Bill from the DBM with the executive na magbibigay ng proposal on the first stage. Yung proposal na to, pinag-usapan namin kanina, di ba? Since month naman po ng pag-ibig pa rin ngayon. Paano lang yan pag may nagpo-propose yung nagliligawan? Di ba? Hindi naman automatic pag yung proposal na yan ay yan na po ang nakalatag na plano, nagbabago po yan. At nakita nyo naman po, kung pinapanood nyo, the House, when it started deliberating on the budget process, has gone through the deliberations with the various agencies. At makikita nyo yan online, pwede nyo balikan, na ginawa po ang proseso na nakalatag po sa batas natin at napunta po ito sa Senate at nagkaroon pa ng BICAM po. So ginawa po natin ang proseso na nandun sa Constitution natin, sa batas natin, sa pag-aapruba nitong General Appropriations Act na from the bill. And earlier, I think before we came in, Secretary Rex has already mentioned that the DSWD welcomes this program ng AKAP. Kasi nga po, bakit po ito magiging masama when ang pera po ng taong bayan, ang binabayad po yung buwis, ay bumabalik naman po sa taong bayan. Diba po? And this is beneficial sa mga nangangailangan. So bakit na binibigyan ng masamang ginagawa tayong masama dito na binabalik naman po natin sa taong bayan ang kinakailangan po ng mga taong makaka-benefit po dito. And this is more on the people who have low income.
Just to add to that na lang po, no? I think it was well put by Congress. Yung question po talaga dito is, ano po talaga yung proseso? And the way that we see it, although kami po dito mga neophyte pa lang po, pero sa pagkakaintindi po namin, sumunod naman po tayo sa proseso, both under the Constitution and under the rules po respectively of the House and the Senate. Now, for someone to say po na ang isang budget ay na-slash galing at ang pondo nito ay linigay sa ibang budget item, mahirap po yan sabihin po kasi ang fiscal budget natin ay balancing act po yan, no? Hindi natin sinasabi dito na halimbawa, okay, magbabawas tayo sa ganitong pondo at maglalagay sa ganitong pondo and then on and on sa iba't ibang mga agencies. Hindi po yung gano'n. Although we have a 5.7 trillion budget that we're working with, sabay-sabay po yung binabalanse. So for someone to claim that one budget was slashed in favor of another, I don't know how we could say that is the case. It's more likely po na equally pag nag-slash ito, lahat yan napunta equally rin sa ibang mga increases. And like they said po, yung proposal po na binibigay, proposal lamang po yan, itong NEP na sinasabi. This is based on the expected expenditure from the executive. But even then po, kulang pa po yun sa hinihingi ng mga bawat agency. Actually po, each agency would submit their proposal to the DBM. And of course, hindi lahat yun ay mapagbibigyan. They work with the current fiscal space at yan na po ang proposal na binibigay sa House. And then when it comes here, each executive agency po, magsasabi yan na actually hindi po lahat ng wishlist namin na isama ng DBM. We want more. And precisely, nakita po namin doon with DSWD, as far as we understand, sang-ayon po sila dito sa budget na ito. This particularly AKA, talagang pinag-usapan po ito as early as October last year, I believe. Yun yung sabi daw po nila. The concept came way before. And the fact na pinasa po yun ngayon, despite being in BICAM, I don't think that's a problem po, no? Kasi dumaan naman sa proseso. And ano po yung pinaka-pruweba na dumaan po ito sa proseso? Yung signatures po ng ating mga senador, ating mga House members na kasama doon sa BICAM. Yung BICAM po, yung check and balance within ourselves. Yun ang pruweba po na nag-usap yung Senate at yung House about using the power of the purse, exercising that right. Nakita po natin doon sa BICAM po yung lumalabas. Now, for one person, for some of our stakeholders to claim now na yung BICAM ay hindi dumaan sa tamang proseso, sa tingin ko po, that is something that should be studied. It is a very grave accusation that should be studied very carefully and investigated. Paano po natin masasabi na hindi dumaan sa proseso? Kayo nga po ay nag-signify, you showed your intention, you showed your approval of the same by giving that signature. So, yun lang po. Sorry po, no, I think we mixed two topics, no, between the signature issue and then yung issue nung kung saan galing budget, no, yung slashing. But I think we have to look at it as a whole. Proseso po yan at dumaan, as far as we understand, sa tamang proseso rin naman po. So, yun lang.
Just to add to what Congressman Mix and Congressman Juan said, I don't see any irregularities, no, dun sa process. Na-explain naman po ni Kong Rhodes na the usual process is that the executive proposes the budget, and this is the NEP, National Expenditure Program. And once it is being deliberated in the House, and once the BICAM approves the budget based on the NEP, it is now become the GAA, di ba? Now becomes the GAA. Pero sabi nga, we can reduce, the Congress can reduce. It's a usual process. If we can reduce, we can augment budget proposals cited in each of the line items per agency. In fact, it happened previously. No? May mga cases wherein, Congress, correct me if I'm wrong, yung libreng sakay ba? Libreng sakay yung ano? Libreng sakay is just the same thing, di ba? It was introduced in the BICAM, but nobody questioned it. Kasi the very purpose of introducing items in the GAA is technically to have a specific beneficiaries, di ba? Kung wala naman pong beneficiary, bakit naman tayo papayag na magdadagdag tayo ng pondo ng ganyan? So, in terms of irregularities, I don't see any reason why some of our counterparts in the Senate are questioning, no, yung process because they themselves affix their signatures. Now, number two, yung issue po ng nagkaroon lang ito ng medyo malawakang diskurso sa publiko when the ongoing PI on the AGAP is, I don't know, it was brought out during the hearing on the PI, which is completely untrue. Kasi ang DSWD po, yan sa pagkakaalam ko, I may be wrong, but this is how I understand the AGAP program. It's a catch-up intervention. Kasi once na-graduated, based on the data, according to PSA, yung nakakatapos ng mga 4-piece programs, they tend to go back to the below poverty line, which is basically the intention of the 4-piece, to maintain them doon sa near poor. And the problem of that is once you don't have an assistance, like a catch-up plan, to maintain these families outside of the poverty line, hindi inappropriate yung pinaka-purpose nun. So you have to have a program for us to maintain yung status nila way above the poverty line. Yung kinukonsider po nating near poor. And based on the data, we have beneficiaries identified, we have sectors identified. So similar with what in the previous Congresses did when they introduced items and augmented a line item, like in libreng sakay, etc. It went just ballistic. Everybody went ballistic because I don't know the reason why it was attached to the ongoing PI investigation, which is sa amin po, which is completely untrue, na hindi po yan gagamitin for any initiatives connected with the People's Initiative. And nasabi po yan ng DSWD, andyan po yung mga facts, hindi po yan totoo. So I guess that is why the public now is investing so much attention in the APA. Maganda po yung programa na yan, well-intentioned, well-intended po yung programa na yan, may mga target beneficiaries po sila, at hindi po yan irregular sa proseso dahil nagangyari po yan doong previous Congresses. And this is within the power of the House of Representatives and the Senate sitting as a bicameral conference.
To add lang to that, no, with the process nga po, bakit po sinisingle out ang administration nito? Pag tinignan nyo naman po yung past administrations, pag tinignan nyo, yung proseso ganito yung nangyayari. Hindi lang sa administration ito. Again, it starts with the proposal. At yung proposal na yun, we only have to work with the budget that's given by DBM. And again, papasok naman po yung deliberations with stakeholders, with the departments, sa kung ano yung mga kinakailangan ng various departments dito. And we had a discussion here in the House, the discussion din po sa Senate, dapat po then na-discuss yun sa BICAM. The GAA was signed on December. It's already almost the end of Feb. Bakit ngayon lang din kino-question to? Di dapat po, especially during the BICAM, if talagang may irregularities, this should have been raised as early as the discussions. At bakit po ngayon kino-question to sa timing na malaking issue. Yung nakakatakot po dito is, sa bawat na lang po na ayuda ibibigay namin sa taong bayan na kasama po sa trabaho po ng public officials, public servants, bakit nire-relate dito sa People's Initiative? Bawal na po ba kaming magbigay ng tulong sa mga taong bayan at gagawin kami masama sa pagbibigay ng nakakabuti naman po sa mga tao. Again, the DSWD, it's within their prerogative to also implement this, and welcome po ng DSWD naman po to, sinabi naman po ng secretary natin this morning.
Yeah, well, thank you, Ongs. To my colleagues from Mindanao, very well pointed out. One thing I want to add lang po, no? As mentioned last week and brought up again by si Kong Zia, yung libreng sakay is one important example. Is it not po yung libreng sakay? Hindi naman po yun talaga regular item ng DOTR. And actually, kung nang lumabas ito during COVID pandemic, with Bayanihan, yung law, yung Bayanihan Act. Tapos, eventually, nawala po ito, but nakita po natin social bill po, or social impact po talaga. Malaking bagay po ito sa ating mga commuters dito sa Metro Manila. And by wisdom of Congress po, binalik po ito. In BICAM rin po, if I'm not mistaken, for last year. So bakit po yung ganung process nung na-insert, hindi po naging issue, pero ngayon AKAP, which again, is a social provision, it's a very, it's a social impact bill, no, provision, na talagang casting a wider net, no. Yung kung dati yung 4Ps ay doon at poorest of the poor, itong AKAP naman ay for the near poor, yung mga vulnerable pa talaga, especially given inflation. Yun po yung pagkakaintindi namin, coming from the experts from no other than DSWD. So, bakit po, just to, why we bring up libreng sakay, no? Just to give that comparison, yung libreng sakay, walang problema, ito may problema. At yung timing pa, according to Kong Zia, in light of yung inquiry to PI. So, yung sa amin po, bakit of all the things, yung nakakatulong po sa tao. Yung ano, I mean, we see it now. Nagsalita na po si Sec. Gatchalian in support. So, in-house, obviously, we support. I don't think the judiciary will say anything contrary to that. Alam naman nila po, power of the purse yan. So with all three through all three branches of government in support, bakit po ngayon naging issue for half of a branch, no, yung per Senate. So yun na po yung aming tanong ngayon. So yun na po.
I have another question, but this is specific to Kong Weeks. Yesterday, you had a statement addressing yung allegation or criticism from the camp of SMNI connecting yung supposed political plans ninyo or ng inyong pamilya in 2025 dun sa dynamics in Davao with SMNI, doon sa nangyayari sa SMNI na parang pinalalabas is parang ayaw nung lumakas yung SMNI because of its connection to the Dutertes. Can you address that criticism?
So, una anong kinalaman talaga po ng politiko sa mga violations nila sa franchise? It has nothing to do with it. Kung hindi sila nag-comply with their franchise, and this goes beyond this year, this is their second round for the renewal of their franchise, at they haven't been complying. Anong kinalaman po ng politics doon? Sa kanila naman po yun. Decision po nila na hindi mag-comply, and I do not know why hindi pa po tapos itong chapter na to na nire-relate po ako sa SMNI. I'm not a member of SMNI. The personalities that were said, the political personalities, are not members of the Kingdom of Jesus, nor do they have, or I have myself have anything to do with the operations of SMNI. Huwag po natin i-mislead at i-misinform at ibudol ang publiko na may bahid ng politika to. Even with the resolution that I found na pasa naman po at ginawa na ng NTC ang kanilang trabaho because may nakita silang violations. Well, again, one vote lang po ako sa Congress. The same as Kong Zia, Kong Rog, at kahit naman po na ako po yung nag-file ng resolution at hindi po ako yung nag-file ng revocation, it has nothing to do with politics. Maybe kailangan nilang tingnan kung paano na nila didepensahin itong mga violations nila sa kanilang prangkisa kaysa gamitin na naman ako para sabihin may political
agenda po ito. Yun.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. I would like to acknowledge Tina of GMA 7 for her question.
So, for everyone on the panel, sir, may allegations po from some senators that galing daw po sa House yung rumors ng Senate coup d'etat.
Should I need to answer that? Yeah, I think so.
Mga marites na po.
Tama, Marites, no? We respect the independence, the independence of our co-equal branch, the Senate. This is entirely up to the Senate, no? In fact, this is entirely up to the majority in the Senate. So we don't know why they keep on tagging us, no? Every time there's an issue coming up. We don't know what went, in these past few days, why the issue came out. We are absolutely oblivious of the fact that there is a case, when there is an issue going on around Senate. So ang sabi lang po it's up to them, no? We respect whatever the decision of the majority of the Senate. So we don't know why this is an issue that connects the House of Representatives when it is purely an administrative decision by the Senate, among the senators, and decision of the majority in the Senate.
Well, simple lang po yan, no? Bakit pag nag-aaway-away po ang Senado, kami pa rin po ang may kasalanan? Wala naman po kinalaman ang House of Representatives sa gusto ng Senado in terms of their leadership. They have their own internal rules. We respect their rules. We respect who they want to place as their leader. So, bakit po nasdadamay na naman po ang Kongreso na parang kami po ang mga masama dito? Kung sila pong mag-aaway-away, sila na pong mag-aaway-away dyan. Or kung magkakasundo sila magkakasundo. The same for us. We have nothing to do with the internal rules of the Senate and whatever and whoever they wish to keep with their leadership. At kung mayroon mga coup, depende po yun sa Senado. Wala po kaming kinalaman dyan.
Sorry, my colleagues here have stated po, no, na I'm similarly surprised na may allegation po nanggagaling yun sa amin. According to some quarters of the Senate, mga congressman lang daw po kami. Napakalakas naman po natin kung makaka-influensya po kami dyan sa upper chamber. Kinakagulat po namin ito because as far as I'm concerned, as far as I know, yung question po ng voting jointly ay doon lang sa economic chacha. Bakit po biglang kasama na kami sa internal rules nila about electing their leaders? Wala naman po kaming boto doon. So I would say na this would be suntok sa buwan po, no? Siguro yung allegation na we are related there. But with that said, we do hope that the Senate comes over. Naintindihan po natin there's a current impasse between the Senate and the House on a professional level po, no, sa trabaho natin. But I hope also yung whatever internal strife po magkaroon man ng Senate. Although we will not meddle, we do hope na matatapos po ito soon. Kasi po, the sooner that they are able to settle this, the sooner we're able to work with po. Like we've said time and time again, kahit last week, we have a golden opportunity. Ang dami nating mga priorities, amongst which yung economic chacha, let's not forget. Sana po makabalik na po tayo sa trabaho. So kung marites man po yan, as according to the reporter po, kung marites man yun, I hope it stays as that. And talagang they find stability po, no, that we may continue with our work. Yun na po.
Marites talaga.
Thank you. Mela Moras of Channel 4.
Hi, good morning po, Congressman. About naman po sa RBH 7 na i-final kahapon, since we have representatives from the minority and majority, may I ask your views po about this? And isama ko na rin, sabi kasi ni Senator Sonny Angara on RBH number 7 ang filing dito sa House. It's a positive development since it's moving towards the same goal. Hindi rin kasi nakakatulong yung ingay patungkol sa PI dahil naapektuhan na itong usapin ng economic amendment sa saligang batas. So nakikita po ba natin to na finally parang there's a light at the end of the tunnel na at ano po masasabi natin dito na even from Senate ay may positive comments about this RBH 7?
So with that, no, this already will address itong mga pagkamarites at chismis na meron mga bahid ng political provisions ang movement towards the economic cha-cha. Very clear naman po sa RBH 7 that it's within the realm of the economic provisions, and it's the same as the one that Senate is looking into. And itong aspeto na to, pag tinignan nyo naman, na mirror po siya. And since welcome siya sa Senate, hopefully, no, tingnan na po nila at they will focus on that, while the House will separately focus into looking into this and joining together as a committee as a whole to really discuss this exhaustively. At makikita nyo naman po ang discussion online because very transparent naman po talaga yung House para makita po na tambayan na itong mga insinuations na baka may bahid ng political, it's very clear. It's only within the economic provisions of the Constitution. And meron doon din, the same yung sa unless otherwise provided by law, which means once this is done, it will now be up to the legislators again to come up with a law to, kumbaga, magiging exception na to the general rule, which is still the very constitution that we have today.
Yes, right. Salamat.
You go first.
Well, personally po, no, and coming from the minority, I think I've said this before, that we all have our own views and opinions on how the economic cha-cha should go. But one thing that cannot be denied that the president, our president, you know, no matter what quarter of the society you're from po, presidente ko natin yan, and their economic strategy, with the great fiscal policy that they're trying to implement, calls for priority, no, economic cha-cha. With that said, although me personally, for example, I would prefer economic cha-cha would be reset, no? Just clean slate, wala pong provisions whatsoever. Ang napagkasunduan po, I believe, between Senate and House, ang pag-uusapan would be this specific provision na unless otherwise provided by law. So, as much as some quarters would prefer na talagang walang prohibition whatsoever, at least it's a start. And we're glad to hear that po, no, na coming from the Senate, there is a positive response to RBH 7. Kumbaga, ang nangyari po dito is yung House nag-adjust na po, no? If instead of totally revamping yung constitutional economic provisions by our design, sumunod na lang po yung House doon sa kinagusto ng Senate na yung unless otherwise provided by law. Para lang maintindihan po natin anong ibig po sabihin yan. Ibig sabihin po, once this is passed, kung ano yung 60-40 provisions po ng Constitution, iyon pa rin po yun unless, yun nga, magpasa na po yung Kamara ng bagong batas. So it's a little lengthier than what I think some of us had hoped na talagang outright liberalization na po sana ng ating ekonomiya. Pero it is a start. And the most important thing, it is a united start na nagsasang-ayon na po ngayon ng House at ng Senate. Of course, this will be moving in parallel, but we'd like to think this is a mirror image po ng kanilang galaw. And we are hopeful na by having a united start, united rin po yung finish natin. Yun naman po yung ating goal dito. You know.
It only reinforces, no, our consistent message to the public that the House is very, very sincere to work with the Senate in revisiting our Constitution, specifically the economic provisions. We are happy that the Senate, Senator Angara, has a positive response when yesterday the leadership of the House filed RBH 7 adopting the version of the Senate. It only goes to say that matagal na po namin sinasabi, let's work together, let's discuss about the economic provisions in the Constitution, and possible to have a healthy discussion and healthy debate rather than dwell so much on name calling and yung patutsada at mga marites. So, yung ganong klaseng pagbibigay po, it's a display, it's an evidence of our full support to the calling of the President. Na gusto niya talaga is magkaroon ng adjustment dyan sa economic provisions natin para mas lumago yung ekonomiya natin, foreign direct investments, etc. Ang personal ko lang ng take dito is there's no more reason for the Senate to continuously hear the case of the BI. Sabi nga po ni Senator Angara, it would only dispel, correct me if I'm wrong, that's what you said, quoted him, it would definitely change the landscape, the narrative, that it has nothing to do with the PI. So it's the call of the Senate. If we want to really have an open and healthy and productive discussion on economic provisions that we would like to amend, let's wrap up the investigation on the PI, kasi they have never and have yet to approve any of the allegations they're discussing. So in order for the public to really understand what we want, what the President wants, what the Houses want, and what the Senate want, and so far as economic provisions is concerned, let's insulate this process from bickerings and from name-callings. And the only way to do that, to move forward, is to stop and put, wrap up the PI investigation nila sa Senado. Kasi namamuddle up na po yung information. In fact, ordinary people cannot even categorize and distinguish between what's the discussion on the economic provisions and what is this ongoing PI is about. So yun po yung panawagan po namin. Let's sit down, discuss this over in a healthy manner, productively, let's exchange ideas. At wag na natin ito i-delay pa ng i-delay ng sobra. At mag-focus doon sa ibang issue na hindi naman makakabuti sa imahe ng legislature. I'm talking about both chambers of Congress.
Just to add lang po, although not necessarily hindi po tumbok dun sa question, I think we've answered that one. But it was rightly put forward by si Kong Zia dun sa PI issue. I remember last week, and I congratulated actually si Chairman Garcia and the rest of COMELEC for coming out with these forms for withdrawal. So at least sana maput to rest na po itong issue ng PI. And although surprisingly, I think it's been a week, but wala pa rin po yung nag-withdraw. And sa nakikita po natin, although we respect, of course, yung Senate, they have the right, it's their power kung if they want to conduct an inquiry. But I hope they consider po also the far-reaching effects. Kasi kung nakikita po natin, as far as I'm concerned, I could be wrong, pero wala pa pong nahanap na witness that would particularly support the allegations against PI. Naglabas na po tayo ng withdrawal forms and wala pa rin po nag-withdraw. I think by now, some people would know yung decision po nila kung gusto o ayaw po nila sa PI. But with all that said and done, yung far-reaching effects po ng inquiry, yung what others would perceive as a rift between the Senate and the House, sana we put to rest. I think that's what si Kong Ji is saying, and I will echo it now. Yung whatever rift is being caused by that, sana po we can put that to rest already. Kasi yun nga po, like we said with RBH 7, how this relates to RBH 7 is, ito na po yung focus natin. Hindi na po, I hope we can set aside PI that we may actually work on RBH 6 on their part, 7 on our part. Together we work on this. Ito na po yung focus. So I don't think there's any more reason for either chamber of Congress to be up in arms about PI. So yun na po yung dagdag ko.
Thank you. For today's last question, you are recognized, Marian Enriquez of Channel 5.
Good morning po. Kahapon po kasi pinasa na po ng Senado sa third and final reading yung 100 pesos na aumento po sa daily wage, minimum wage sa mga manggagawa sa private sector. So meron din po apila si Senate President Big Zubiri na sana raw po yung mga counterpart, mga mababatas natin dito sa Kamara, action na rin po yung wage increase bill. Ano po ba yung stand po rito?
Well, syempre we welcome any wage increase, lalo na the cost of living is really getting higher ngayon, diba? Itong 100 peso increase on the minimum wage is good for the people, pero hindi po to sapat. And in any wage increase, alam po natin na syempre it will be additional cost sa mga businesses, especially sa Pilipinas. About 98% ng ating industriya are run by micro, small, medium enterprises. I think PSA released this data in 2023. At kung yung mga maliliit na mga enterprises ay kukunin, syempre additional cost yan para dumagdag sa kanilang pangkasweldo sa kanilang mga labor, sa mga employees, no? Then dito papasok ang sana nga po pag magkasundo na po ang Senate at saka Congress at magawa po natin ang trabaho natin with regard to the economic provisions. Itong mga losses na kukunin ng mga maliliit na enterprises, mga maliliit na business, pag nagkaroon ng investment sana sa mga foreign mga foreigners ay masasalo nila at matutulungan nito ang mga enterprises na to para mataas ang sweldo, para hopefully mas maging mas marami pa ang trabaho at mas magiging sustainable ang mga businesses natin, which is what we want, para mas maging maganda ang ekonomiya ng Pilipinas at ang kabuhayan ng ating mamamayan as a whole.
You want to go?
To add to that lang po, no? And I guess it's a reiteration. We welcome the challenge po, no, from the Senate. And if I'm not mistaken, a matter of fact, meron rin pong legislated wage increase bill dito sa House for 350 pesos. But like we said, why it's not on third yet, is that talagang ibabalance po talaga natin ito. Kasi po, hindi ito biro, although we may say na mataas na increase po sana ito, let's say either the 100 as proposed by the Senate or the 350 that we are deliberating here. Alam po natin, malaking tulong po dito sa ating mga kababayan. Pero on the flip side po, I believe 90 to 95% ng ating mga business dito ay MSMEs. And based on yung mga financial experts, yung research persons that we've had, based also on our esteemed colleagues na mga ekonomista, why we urge for caution with this, yung pagbalanse, is that kung itaas man ito na legislated, na hindi pinag-aralan ng mabuti, baka pumalya naman yung mga negosyo at lahat, mas maraming mawawala ng trabaho. So we really have to balance it po. And to remember for both houses, I think, for both chambers of Congress, iba po yung legislated wage increase. Meron po tayong actually mechanism with the executive in DOLE for the increase of wages na unti-unti they would, pinag-aaralan po nila, they would study it and they would implement. Now to have an overarching, across-the-board legislated wage increase is really mabigat po talaga yan. So that's why we accept the challenge. Definitely, we hope that they would also consider yung sa amin, yung 350 pesos. But for both sides, I think we should approach it cautiously kasi marami pong stakeholders dito. Hindi lang yung mga sinasahod, yung nagbibigay rin ng sahod. So, yun lang po, we have to see what's better for the economy. But what we can say, sorry, ibabalik po namin doon, economic charter change, as I think it was Kong Jan rin, who mentioned na siguro makakamit po natin 350 pesos wage increase easily or even more kapag may mga investor na po tayo from outside, kapag may mga capital na papasok na po through foreign direct investment. Pag talagang umunlad po yung ating ekonomiya, then definitely uunlad rin po yung ating standard of living. So yun na po siguro yung aming hope. Salamat po.
Yes, baka reiteration din at additional yung point lang na sinabi kanina ni Congresswoman Mix at saka si Kong Rods na once you propose kasi, this is a well-intentioned bill. We're not questioning. I personally do not question. I in fact laud the intention of those proponents na magkaroon ng increase ng 100. Una, it's not even enough, no? And we're talking about the increasing ng wage doon sa mga hired o mga employed in private companies. Sabi nga na aking mga kasamahan dito, the data shows that 98% of our of the businesses, the landscape, no, are mostly from the MSMEs. Only I think 2% to 1% lang yung mga foreign nationals of big companies that can probably equip financially to increase the wages of their employees. Ang problema natin is pag nag-legislate ka kasi, you also have to, it's easier to propose it, but the question really, the hard question is how to go about it. Do we have the capability? For example, if we are to require all private companies, which are basically MSMEs, to increase the salaries of their employees, can they probably sustain that? Baka naman ang mangyari is that instead of employment reduction, baka completely mag-close down. And sabi ko nga, the proposal really is the intention is because of the inflation, no? Kasi kaya ka dadagdag ng sweldo kasi hindi kaya yung sweldo na sinusweldo ngayon ng ating mga manggagawa sa private sector. Insert ko lang to, I think this is, maybe we can discuss also, go back to the APAP program. Kasi the intention of this is to really provide assistance, no? Basically to make the private and the employees in the private sector to really cope up with the increasing prices of basic commodities, the inflation basically. That's why they need to have the 100 peso increase. And yet, we are questioning the proposal at the ATAP program, which is basically it. No? Yung mga kasi sa near poor, yung mga in-employ ng mga private companies, MSMEs, usually yan sa mga, uso ngayon because of the pandemic, uso ngayon yung mga Grab drivers, yung nag-deliver sa inyo ng mga pagkain. These are considered near poor, no? These are the target beneficiaries of the ATAP program, no? Yun po yung mga, because of the inflation. Again, let's go back to the issue, no? Yung intention talaga ng batas. In the House of Representatives, we are even proposing a much higher. But sabi ko nga, it's easier to propose, but the hard question is how to go about it. We also need to really appreciate kung ano yung landscape sa mga private companies, especially those who are hired under the MSC, micro, small businesses. Kung kaya ba ng kumpanya nila? Kung kaya naman ng kumpanya nila, why not? Why not increase it? Why not settle for 100? Kung hindi naman kaya ng ng kanilang mga companies na to a point na baka mag-reduce sila ng employees or mag-close na ng kanilang mga kumpanya, baka naman pag-usapan pa natin to lengthily. And this has been discussed, I guess, by Congresswoman Karin. Ang akin lang is the intention. If we want to increase the salaries of those who are hired in the private companies, 100 pesos, and yet question ATAP, which is basically the same intention because of inflation, doon po tayo, I think we need to balance our appreciation in those two things. No? Ang amin lang po, we will support any initiative from the Senate to ease down the burden of our of the middle class, especially the near poor, no, ng mga workers natin, for as long as we have the capacity to do so. Yun lang po yung natin position po dito sa House of Representatives. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you. Before we end, may I invite our guests to share their closing remarks if they have any.
Well, very simple lang po. No? Sana magkasundo na po at tumigil na po ang itong word war between Senate and the House para bumalik po tayo sa anong importante at anong po trabaho natin as public servants ay mapabuti ang kabuhayan ng ating mga constituents, ang ating taong bayan. And hopefully, hindi po kami dito sa House of Representatives ang gawin nilang masama kung ano pang mangyayari dun sa Senado. Dito po, we welcome working with the Senate para magkaroon tayo ng mas mabuting mga pwedeng ibalik sa taong bayan, which is basically what our job is at hindi yung pang-aaway. And we're happy to know that with the filing of RBH 7 ay mukhang nagtuwa na ang Senado. Sana dito na po ang magiging start, sinabi nga po ni Kong Roch Gutierrez na united puta sana natin simulan dito at tapos tayo na united din po. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's. I want to. Yeah.
I guess just a closing remark. Thank you everyone for coming here. Hope we were able to elucidate more on yung mga katanungan natin ngayon. I'll just be echoing siguro yun naman talagang theme natin po ngayon. Everything we're doing here is for the betterment of the country. Yung ating concern po, whatever impasse there might be, whatever issues might be between the two houses, the two chambers of Congress. Sana po we can set aside these differences already. And like we've already called for the weeks prior, we have a golden opportunity ahead of us. Let's set to work. United start, united finish. Para sa bayan naman po yun. Maraming salamat po.
I think for me, on my part, as a closing remark, again, salamat po sa opportunity again na makasama po ang ating mga friends in the media. Yung pagpasa po ng RBH 7, sana we can start new and fresh. No? Sana po, again, it's our commitment to the President and it's our commitment to the people that we are really interested in pushing for the amendment and the economic provisions. Kasi ang dami pong problema talaga, inflation, unemployment rate, etc. So this is this is one way. No, I think this is the perfect avenue for us to discuss lengthily in a productive way on how to solve issues that confronts our people. No? Sa kulang ng trabaho, kulang sa sahod. So, I'm optimistic that with the filing of the RBH 7, adopting the version of the Senate, we can finally move forward. No? Whatever was said in the previous weeks or days should be water under the bridge already. Dapat ho magkaisa. At sa amin po dito sa House of Representatives, ang aming pong sa leadership po ni Speaker Martin Romualdez, we are really open and we are willing to work with our counterpart in the Senate in a productive manner, in a way we can really discuss yung mga merits po ng proposal to amend the economic provision. So dapat po doon na tayo mag-focus para po sa kapakanan ng ating taong bayan. So maraming salamat po sa pagkakataon and good morning again. Assalamualaikum.
Thank you again, Congresswoman Diggs, Congressman Zia, and Congressman Brods for your participation today. See you tomorrow. Magandang hapon.
Thank you.
See you
Thank you.
Meron siya mga ligawan.
Ligawan.
Yung ano yung
Thank you, sir.
Happy